Alright, so let's get started with creating SharePoint 2013 workflows to create an announcement in the announcement list when a new class is added in the classes list. So names of this classes is the name of the first list, class announcements is the name of the second list, and these are the columns in the classes list. The announcement list has got just the standard columns, but it's got a view by the name active announcements, and these are the settings of the view. And finally, we're going to take the announcements web part and then add it to the home page, and this is how it's going to look like. So looking at the site contents, I have classes list and then I have class announcements list. And going back to the home page, I have the announcement list announcement web part over here. And if I take a look at the properties of the announcements, then you're gonna see that edit web part, you can actually scroll and then you can see that currently it's using the active announcements view. Okay, and also I have configured the toolbar to no toolbar and the appearance to be announcements instead of class announcements, and hit on OK, and this is how it's gonna come up. Hit on save, and this is how the announcement list is going to look like. Now we're going to go ahead and create the workflow. Okay, so let's go to SharePoint Designer, and I'm going to click on workflows and then click on list workflows, and the workflow is supposed to be written on the classes list. When the user creates a brand new class in the classes list, the workflow is supposed to add an entry in the class announcement list. So let's click on classes and give this a name, announcements. Okay, create announcement. Yes, it's gonna create announcement. Okay, and so I can choose SharePoint 2010 workflows or SharePoint 2013 workflow template. Okay, but I'm gonna choose SharePoint 2013 workflow template. And they look pretty similar, except for the fact that SharePoint 2013 workflows has got the stages, which is not there in 2010. 2010 just has the steps. But behind the scenes, the SharePoint architecture, the technical architecture for SharePoint 2013 is a lot more robust than SharePoint 2010 workflows. Okay, so okay, let's go ahead and do the same thing. Make this in progress. Okay, and then add another stage over here, which is going to be completed, and then in here I'm going to drop an action which is going to be go to the stage, and in here I'm going to drop another action which is going to be okay, so this is going to go to completed stage, and over here it's going to end the workflow. So let's get started with the first thing, which is I want an entry to be created in the announcements list when an item is created in the class, right? So let's scroll down to the list actions and let's go to create list item. Okay, so using this I can create a list item in any list. Okay, so click on this item, and here I need to choose the list. Okay, and this time, and it's going to be the class announcements list, right? So I choose class announcements, and it gives me an option. It's saying that okay, so you're creating a brand new entry in the announcement list. Now tell me which column is going to have what value. Okay, so I need to choose the columns. So the first one is going to be title. Okay, so now I need to give a value to it, right? So this is the column, so every column should have a value. Number one, I need to choose what columns I'm going to be supplying values for, and then after I choose the column I need to supply the value in there. Okay, so over here I could just go ahead and write down new course alert. Okay, just make it as simple as that. Okay, alright, or I could kind of like make it a little more dynamic, which is I want to know which course is starting up. Okay, wouldn't it be better instead of just new course starting up, and there might be like 20 announcements which are like new course starting up, new course starting up, In fact, what I want to see is that which course is going to start up, okay, in the title itself. So I can choose add or change lookup, and it pops open this lookup and it's current item, which is good because that's what I want. The user just entered the course in the classes list. I'm in the classes list. Okay, so from the classes list on which the workflow is going to fire, I'm going to get the course name. Okay, a new course is starting up. Okay, so that's all I'm going to have in the title. All right, hit on OK. That looks good. Hit on OK, and that looks good. Okay, now in the body I want to have more details. So choose the body, and in here I want to have more details, which is going to be the name of the course, which is course name is starting on the date. I want to give the date as well. It's going to be course start date. Okay, please register as soon as possible. Okay, sounds pretty good, right? Okay, so I have the start date, and then I have the course and the start date. Okay, so I'm sorry, so far I have the title and the body. The third thing that I need in there is going to be the expires. Okay, remember we configured the announcements web part on the home page to show only those items which have not expired. Okay, so I want to set the expiry as well. So over here I'm going to set the expiry to start date. Actually, I'm going to set it to start date, course start date. Okay, set it to course start date, as easy as that. So the reason being that if the course is already started up, then there's no point in having the announcement, right? So hit on OK. So I have three values here: title, body, and expires. Okay, so I'm passing values. So this is creating me a brand new announcement in the announcement list. Okay, hit on save, and so as of right now I can actually go ahead and save and publish it. But before I do that, I just want to make use of another workflow action, which is log to history list. Okay, so in here I'm going to go ahead and write down all those items which has been entered in the classes list which cause this workflow to fire. Okay, so the following course was added which caused the workflow to fire. Okay, which is course name and then course start date. Okay, so the course name over here is going to be course name. Okay, and then the course title over here is going to be start. Course start date. Okay, and so I'm going to show you what logging does. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on publish, but before I do that I just want to go back and then check my trigger to make sure that the workflow automatically fires when an item has been added. Okay, click on publish. So again, let's see if the workflow is done publishing. So let's go to classes here. Okay, and I see create announcements workflow, which is good. So I'm gonna go ahead and enter a brand new course over here, which is going to be AWS. This is Amazon Web Services course. Okay, so let's go ahead and say that this is going to start on the 23rd. Okay, and hit on save. Okay, so I'm going to click on refresh again. Let's see what I get, and I get nothing. Again, nothing. You're right, I probably might have to, but I thought I did configure it to auto start when an item has been entered. So let's see what I get. So let's see. All right, so let's go and create announcements, and then okay, so seems it didn't save it the last time when I published it, so let me go ahead and do that again. Hit on publish. Okay, so now that I have published successfully with start automatically when an item has been changed, then I can actually go ahead and create a new course, and this new course is going to be iPhone apps, and this is actually going to be starting up on the 20th. Hit on save, and let's see what I get. Let me go ahead and refresh it. Okay, in progress, and this is completed. So I'm going to open up another window, and this time go to the home page, and so there should be an announcement, and there it is. iPhone apps is starting on the 20th on okay, and this is the time as well. Okay, please register as soon as possible. And so I also have modified in there, which I don't think I should. Okay, I can go ahead and remove that. So let me go ahead and make these quick fixes in the workflow, which is number one, this should be starting. And then I think that this is one of the changes that I'm going to make in the web part, in the announcements web part, where I don't need to see the modified. Okay, showing me the modified. So these are two modifications, but I'm happy that my workflow is definitely starting up, and then it automatically creates this announcement in the announcement list. Okay, so let's go back and then modify this workflow real fast. Oh yeah, also there was one other thing that I wanted to see before I start modifying the workflow, which is, let's go back to the classes list, click on the completed, and let's take a look at the workflow history. Remember, I added some content in the workflow history to be shown up, and look at that. The following course was added, which caused the workflow to fire. Course name is iPhone apps, and course start date is this. So the workflow history is nothing but just a log. Okay, you as a developer, you can actually, and a lot of times what happens is that, you know, these developers or some of these users, by mistake, they might actually, like for example, they might just go in here and then they might edit this again, and by mistake, just by an honest mistake, this was not supposed to be iPhone apps, this was supposed to be .NET. Okay, and then click on save, and so this is .NET course over here. But then the business user walks over to you and then says, hey, I entered .NET in there. For some weird reason, your program actually shows AWS course on the home page, or actually iPhone course on the home page. So look at that, there's a discrepancy now, right? The list, after it has been modified, which is an honest mistake, but the finger is pointing towards you, saying that, hey, you know what, there's something wrong with your workflow. I entered .NET over here, and I'm not sure why it says iPhone app over here. Okay, so there's a finger pointing towards you. Now there's something wrong with your workflow, right? So that's where your workflow status can come in, and then you see, so this is the logging that you have done, and then you look at it, and then you say, no, hold on 1 second, I think that initially in the beginning you had entered iPhone apps. I can clearly see that this is a workflow history and nobody can delete this. Okay, and it shows clearly over here that the code that you added was iPhone apps, and then this was the start date. Okay, so I think that you might have gone back and modified it. Okay, so I have actually used a workflow history list to help me debug this problem, and that's exactly why the workflow history list is for. It's for you to go ahead and write down critical information that you as a developer can come back and look into it if there's an issue to fix. If something goes wrong, then you can always kind of like, it's a breadcrumb. You can just follow the breadcrumbs all the way and then see, hey, so this is the path that the workflow has followed, and this might be the reason why, you know, this issue happened. Okay, so this is some sort of like a log that you can always use. And Now let's go back to the workflow again and take a look at it. So log to history list is what I've used over here, and it does an awesome job of actually writing down any kind of details that I want in here. Okay, so I'm gonna keep it the way it is, go back in here and then go back to title and then write down a new course. Actually, I'm gonna open up the editor here. Okay, so the title was good, no problem with the title. I think the problem was with the body. So is starting on so and so date, please register as soon as possible. Okay, and the expiry is, so I just fixed that and I can go ahead and republish it, and let me go ahead and do that. So okay, so I just want to go ahead and make another change over here, which is I want to choose this third option as well, which is start workflow automatically when an item is changed. Let's go ahead and republish it again. And while this happens, I'm going to go back to the home page and then remove the modified date from the view over here. I don't need that. So for that, I gotta go first to the announcements list, where I'm going to modify the view. And while I'm here, I can also, this is the all items view. Okay, I can see right over here all items. I'm going to go to modify view over here, scroll down, and then choose body as well, so that I can see the body, and then as well I can see the expire. So this is in the all items view only, and I'm gonna make this as 12 and modified by is going to be 13. Okay, and actually this is going to be, so I'm gonna make expires as 7. Yeah, I'm gonna keep modified and modify by, but this is a different view, it's not that view. This is for me right now to just verify and make sure that the expires date did populate the way I wanted it to be, which is good. You know, I said the iPhone app to be starting on the 28th, and here it is. Okay, which is awesome. So the expires, so it's just not the title, just not the announcement, but even the expires column populates just like the way I want it. Okay, so now let's go back to the second view, which is actually hold on, let me switch over to the announcements view and then modify this view. Okay, so that's the view, and let's modify this view, and let's remove not modified from there, just uncheck that. Okay, so hit on OK, and looking at this view, so there's no modified anymore. Okay, but now if I go back to my home page, now this is the home page. No, my bad, that's not the home page. No, no. Oh, this is the home page, you're right. Okay, my bad. So this is the home page. So I'm gonna refresh, and what do you think? If I refresh, the modified is gonna disappear from here as well? It does not. The web part, it retains a local copy of all the settings that you configure in it, and one of the settings that I configured in it was the view. So now I need to go back and just select the same view over again, scroll down, hit on OK, and then hit on save, and now it's gone. So this is the way that you refresh that. Okay, so now I fixed this as well, and which is nice and easy. Okay, so yes, so let's go back and then fix that again. So again, the problem that we have figured out was, even if I change the course over here, the course name does not change on the home page. It just remains iPhone apps, whereas over here I changed it to .NET. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and then change it again, which is .NET course. Okay, and then hit on save. So what do you think is going to happen now? Do you think it's going to change on the home page? So let's go ahead and modify this, and let's see what happens. Let's see if the workflow creates a brand new announcement or if it modifies the existing iPhone announcement and update it to .NET. So here it fires again. It's in progress and it's completed. So now if I go over to my announcement list, so and I refresh this page, the question is that if this iPhone app is going to be changed over to a .NET app or not, or if not, then what's going to happen? It just adds a new line in there. Okay, so every single time, and the reason being that the workflow is not capable of updating an iPhone app. Actually, it's not capable of updating an existing entry. All it does is that it just creates new entries. It's brain dead, and it just creates new entries every single time. Okay, so if you go back and take a look at the workflow and then run through the workflow again, okay, the first time, so let's consider both the two cases. The first case is if a new item has been added. What's going to happen? It logs to the workflow history list, and then it creates a new item in the announcement, and then it jumps over here, and then it ends. Now let's talk about the second case, where if the workflow fires when an item has been edited. When an item has been edited, it makes an entry over here, but look at that again. It's following the same line of code, which is it creates a brand new item again, but this time with a new name. Okay, so let's go back and then modify this item again, and then this time I'm going to make it Microsoft .NET course. Okay, and hit on save, and the workflow is going to progress, and then it completes. Go back to this chapter, go back to the home page, and look at that. Now I have a third entry. Okay, right. So the thing is that it just brain dead. It does not search for an existing item. There's no way for it to know that, hey, there could be like 1,000 announcements in there. There's no way for it to know that, hey, this was the item that I've added in there. Okay, there are ways. There definitely are ways. Okay, but the thing is that in this case, it's impossible with the line of code. Okay, so it just brain dead. It just keeps adding new entries, new entries, new entries, and new entries. That's all it does. Because that's the code that you have. It's capable of only doing this. Yes, actually, you have to write down. You have to enhance the workflow to write down the logic in there to actually find the item which it had created in the past and then update that. That's a lot more work. That's a lot more work. Okay. Alright, so we're going to modify this workflow a little bit, and before we do that, let's just go back to the workflow again. I just want to show you the statuses. So these are the statuses, and we have seen, and let's just go back again to the workflow and take a look at the workflow settings. Click on workflow settings, and here you see a list of all the workflows. And you can see that there are 0 workflows in progress. Okay, I can definitely remove this workflow by clicking on remove or restore workflow, and then just click on remove. This is going to unassociate the workflow from the list completely. Okay, so let's not do that. Let's go back and then customize this workflow, but this time what I want to do is I want to go ahead and change the expiry not to the start date of the course, but to 7 days from the time the announcement has been created. Okay, so this time I'm going to use another action for that. There's another workflow action, which is add time to date. So there's no easy way to just add 7 days to today and then just update that within the announcement list. There's no way to do that. So but then I have to use add time to date. So every single time when you want to add any kind of time to the date, like might be in days, might be in minutes, might be in seconds, you end up using the add time to date workflow action. Okay, and what it returns you back when you click on this, what it's going to return you back is, so in my case I'm going to go ahead and add 5 days over here. Okay, so I'm saying that add 5 days to date, and which date is that? It's going to be today. specific current date. Okay, so I can just go ahead and choose current date over here. Okay, so smart enough to get today in there. Okay, but so here's the thing, like remember we were talking about calculate, do calculation, workflow the last time, do calculation, workflow action the last time. So similarly with this as well, you know, when you add in, when you pass in the time and the date, it takes in two parameters, right, or a little more than two, but then it takes in the time and then it takes in the date. So what it returns you back is output in a variable. So it adds the time to the date and then it returns it back in the variable, and I can go ahead and change the variable name to whatever I want. I'm going to make it a little more specific, which is going to be uh, 7 days from now. Okay, so that is a new variable that I've created. So what's going to happen is that this workflow action is going to do the calculation over here, and then it's going to store that in this memory spot, which is also known as a variable by the name 7 days from now. Okay, so the value is stored in this variable and I need to retrieve it. So I'm going to go to create items in the class announcement, and I'm going to modify this, change the expiry, click on modify, and then change the expiry from whatever it is over here to the variable. So click on workflow variables and parameters, and now over here I'm going to see a list of all the variables which I have in my program, which I have 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to choose this 7 days from now, hit on OK, hit on OK, and so whatever value is stored in this variable is going to be saved in the expires column, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so I can also, just for logging purposes, I would also like to add another log to history action, log to history list, and in here I'm going to add the evaluated date, the new 7 days from now date as well in the log to history workflow action. Okay, so let's go and do that. So I'm going to say 7 days from now, the date is this time again. So I'm gonna, it's not the current item, but it's a workflow variable. Choose that and then choose 7 days from now, hit on OK, hit on OK, and this is what I have. So it's gonna log this to the workflow list, hit on publish. I can also look at the list of all the variables by clicking over here. Okay, so this shows me the list of all the variables which I have in my program. If I'm not using any, I can go ahead and delete them. I'm not using the create, delete them. I'm not using the date, delete it. The only thing that I'm using is 7 days from now variable. I can add as many variables as I want, you know, and it could be any data types. You know, I can add, I don't even know, I mean X, Y, Z, you know, and then I choose their type as well. Like remember, these are kind of like the columns. You know, the data types or the columns that you have, it's very similar to that. Okay, so string is usually what you use if it's a number, if it's an integer, if it's a GYD, date, time, boolean. Okay, so I can pretty much just create as many variables as I want and then use them. I'm not using any, so I'm going to be removing them. So this is one change that I've done. Right, so a second change that I'm also going to do is over here. So this is like creating an item, and this is what we just did, right? So it's going to update the expires column with this new information, which is nice and good. But now in this case as well, like the way we have seen that in this workflow action, it returns an output variable which holds which holds the evaluated date, right? So over here as well, you can see that there's an output to variable create. So the question is that what exactly is this variable? What does it do? Okay, and over here I'm actually creating a line item. Okay, over here I'm creating a line item, and after the line item is being created, it's passing me something back. The question is, what exactly is stored in the variable? What exactly is it passing back? So here's the thing, what's being passed over here is a very special variable. It's a very special value, which is the list item ID. So now let's go back to any list. Okay, in this case let's go back to announcement list. Okay, so these are the columns that I have in the announcements list, right? Okay, but there's one other column in here which I don't really see, which you would definitely know about it. We have talked about it several times, and that one is list item ID. Or actually the ID. Every single list has got this, and this is a unique number that it creates for every single list item. Okay, so in this case, take a look at that: 3, 2, 1. So this is a unique. So in a list, two items can have exactly the same values, right? So I can't distinguish between them. But then the ID column is maintained by the list itself, by SharePoint itself, and then it makes sure that every line item has got a unique item ID to it. It's like social security numbers. Okay, so it's social security numbers for a row item. Okay, and this is what it returns me back. It returns me back the ID. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and create a new variable, call it list item ID. Okay, and then it's going to be GUID type. Okay, and this is what I get. And now I'm gonna add another log to action over here, log to history list, which is a new announcements list item was created with the GUID of. So I'm going to use the variable, which is, and then use list item ID. Okay, and that should be it. Let's go ahead and publish. Alright, so now that it's published, let's go ahead and see how it works. Let's go back to classes, and now I'm gonna go ahead and write down iPhone apps class starting soon, and this is going to be on the 24th. Hit on save. Let's see what happens. In progress. Taking a little bit of extra time, and now it's actually done. Let's go back and then refresh this and see what we get. Okay, that's a 1. Okay, so a new course, iPhone apps class starting soon, is starting up. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Okay, so the reason being that I actually have, okay, iPhone apps class starting soon, and it just added iPhone apps class starting soon is starting up to it. Okay, but that's fine. And so this is the expiry date. But actually, hold on, let's go back. We might have to fix the workflow again a little bit, but let's go back to the announcements list over here and take a look at the evaluated expiry date. Okay, so this is item 4, which is the latest one. Okay, and so let's take a look at the expiry. The expiry is 5 days from now, which is the 22nd. Perfect, right? So 17 plus 5, it's the 22nd. Perfect, and this is what I was looking for. And so it's actually doing the job pretty good, right? Now let's take a look at the workflow history to see what is adding up. This is where I am. I scroll down and let's take a look at the workflow history. Look at that. A new announcement list item was created with the GUID. So this is an internal GUID that it has created. In the past, okay, so this does not create the list item ID. I apologize for that. It's actually creating the GUID. This is kind of like a unique number that I can't even see, which is associated with every single list item. Okay, but it definitely, I can see that it actually gives me the GUID number. Okay, so in brief, we have seen how this workflow is capable of creating brand new line items, and how I can use the workflow action log to history, how I can use the workflow action add dates, add time to date, and finally how I can use create list item workflow action. Okay, capiche? Make sense?